package. There was no name written on it, but I was very curious, and I went on to see what was inside it. I wish I'd never opened that box. The box was full of pictures, those old Polaroid printouts, and each picture depicted a different body part. A picture of a human heart, a picture of just a torso, no limbs, a picture of a child's face with their eyes rolled back in their head. When I saw that face, I dropped the box. I ran up to my room. My parents must have found the box and called the police. When they got here, they asked me many questions, but I didn't tell them anything about going on the dark web. I was still too afraid that I had done something illegal. I just knew it was you. It was sure it was worth lying about.
A new set of challenges await.
Everything seemed to go back to normal after these experiences, at least for now. I haven't gotten any new messages or packages, and the police haven't contacted us with any further information. But all of this has really shown me something. It's shown me how this world can be evil and cruel. I didn't know that there were people out there like that. For anyone who hasn't been to the deep web, I suggest you quit thinking about it, because you will most definitely be risking your life. Number 2. I bought my dad on eBay. Submitted by Christopher Maxim.
A new playlist just opened up.
I'm only 13 years old. I'm very tech savvy. I enjoy computers, and even building them from time to time. One of my more recent and morbid hobbies has been exploring the deep web. If you get the wrong idea, and you will go there for the wrong stuff. I do, and the kind of stuff you're thinking about. That's the deep web, the joy of looking at new websites, and new business. And when the catalog built around personal entertainment, it feels like literally just moving towards an evergreen planet. But at least the dark side of one. Despite it being the deep web, most of the websites are not mundane and uninspired. For example, the level conspiracy site, alien site, and sites dedicated to assassinating the president. And then there's the most interesting ones, like a place where someone could be in a fan fiction site, and I'm talking violent, hypersexual fan fiction, to name a few. These are the kinds of sites that either pique my interest or make me laugh, giving them a spot in my catalog of oddities. One day, all of my would be unusual, and I came across a site called Parent Snatcher. The layout was a twist, more like someone's cafe than a deep web website. But I wanted to see what it was and read its contents. I knew it was a game it was really links to eBay listings and the service web and signal pressure. 27. eBay listing says it will exceed $8,326. And 28. The eBay listing saying so. $11,561. 22. The eBay listing said drapes $1,569. Those van. The eBay listing said ceiling fan $157. 32. The eBay link stated that equal set $59.97 as well. It's really confused me. Doing digging and connecting my various number sources embedded into the background of the website, being a bit of encryption they sent. If it might be a code of some sort. I took down some of these numbers. I read with a regular programs that I have on my computer. But now, for some I looked at a message. Welcome to Parent Snatcher. Getting it all the time. It's easy. You got a little place. They're listing for another unit. Field listing for another unit. Pages are included in the description. This payment is received by the eBay user. If you go there, the human beings, they live in a Snatcher desire full satisfaction. Enjoying. That was obviously weird. I've certainly never seen anything like that in the name lab. This was definitely getting a special place in my gut. It was paid a lot. I was leaving the scientific collection. I wondered if it actually worked. Today, it's been me and my mom for as long as I can remember. She said it's easy to was young and being there. Seeing me it seemed to be my life again. Like I said, it's no better. I tried out some different search engines and asked around the deep web and so as well. I see mentioned parents that it was I finally realized my computer. Next life, it was nearly 3 freaking ring. I've been searching for information on this one site for several hours. And recently, I just couldn't let it go. If you put me up for a figure, perhaps it was the sleep deprivation. Either way, I put myself walking upstairs to my mom's bedroom. Once there, I snuck past her, asleep in the bed. I reached the doors, located her night's hands. I took a moment and quietly walked back downstairs to my room. I sat down, sleeping soundly. I picked up one of her credit cards. The machine was now just a weird sniffles. Ceiling bed. I typed in and then I paused for a moment. It was about to be my mom's trust. I think we included her money. It was also doing something potentially dangerous. And I just was on this. I was just everything because you're getting scammed. That's why they just randomly unsuspecting you and me and my parents' money. They asked myself these questions. They made a dent in my curiosity. I enter and finalize the purchase. After sneaking the card back into my mom's purse, and without being noticed, I waited. Days passed. Those days became weeks. I had to put up with my mom arguing on the phone with her credit card company, as well as eBay, over the mysterious $3,000 purchase I made through the deed. Even venting with me about it from time to time. That made me feel guilty. I'm guilty. It was no match for my excitement. I could not wait to see a Baron statue was legitimate. Weeks that passed eventually turned into a month, and that's when I started becoming wary of the site's claims. Began to accept the fact that I was just a dumb kid. I had mastered Motorfest. I was likely hopeless. Like an idiot, I had been fantasizing about it was the site it was the man that I spent to meet my dad. It would meet me, meet my mom, and they would both fall in love. We would be a family again. I knew the chances were slim, but I still hoped. I was on my computer, searching for fake web channels. I read that bang in the front door. My computer, a baseball bat I kept under my bed, and I was ready to grab any major. I was getting into the playing stance. I heard someone shuffling around outside my bedroom. I adrenaline through. I stood my ground and got under the bed, ready to speak. My bedroom was red. It was a man wearing all black. He was leaning black ski mask. He stood there, leaning it down. I really scared me. We were plainly speaking. Bravely more honest. With favorite snatcher. Confusion. The man did suddenly bolted in my direction and pulled me. He put his hand over my mouth and pulled me out of my room. They swirled him, but he was too strong. Just before he could get me out of my house, I attempted to put his hand through the glove he was wearing. Like such a 19-foot at the tops of the stairs. Just things online. Things that will change your life forever. This world is there are dangerous things online. Things that will change your life forever. This world is a strange one. They say that we don't see most of the actual internet. That the websites pulled up by search engines don't have access to something called the dark web. It's an online underworld, only accessible if you use an anonymous browser. Exploring this disturbing place without a VPN or virtual private network, you're not just risking legal troubles, you're risking your life. So I'm going to share with you some haunting dark web scary stories. Stories that will make 4chan seem family friendly. But first, have you ever had a creepy experience at Subway? I'd love to hear your story and maybe put it in a future video. Go to deathbyfear.com to share your story with me and the world. Also, stay tuned this Friday at 5 p.m. Central for a live stream. Now, let's dive into the dark web and see who or what finds us first. Number 1. My deep web experience. Submitted by 10 letters. I'm a 17-year-old guy living in South Germany, in Hessen to be exact. I live in a pretty loud neighborhood with a lot of crazy stuff going on. I don't care if you believe me or not, but I know what I experienced. One day at school, my friend, let's call him Jack, told me about the deep web. Back then, I had absolutely no idea what it was. He said you can order weed and buy illegal stuff on it. I thought that was the only thing that could be found on the deep web, but I couldn't have been more wrong. So my friend invited me over to his place so we could check it out. But considering my parents wouldn't be home that day, I said we should go to my place instead. So we did. After school, we met at my house. He told me the instructions on how to use the deep web, and I followed him closely. We downloaded the Tor browser and some free but bad VPN. When we had everything together, or so we thought, we used this search engine we found on some random wiki called Ice Rocket, and off we went. Our journey began with us looking at some weed on sale and some guns. We were exploring a lot. This was stuff I'd never seen before, so I was highly curious. But we didn't buy anything though. We clicked over to some random site, but it was completely blank. That is until the pop-ups began to show up. There were links leading to other random sites. So like an online game of Russian roulette, we simply clicked one. The site was named something like Child Experiments. Just the title alone gave me chills. I told my friend we should probably stop, or at the very least leave that site, because it just didn't sound good. But he ignored me. His curiosity was getting the better of him. He began to scroll down, and that's when we saw the pictures. Pictures of children, mutilated children. I was disgusted, more than I'd ever been in my life. I was so disturbed at that point that I told my friend that he should just go home immediately, but he still just sat there, not acknowledging a word I said, as if he was in some kind of trance. I should have just shut down the computer or pulled the plug out of the wall. I don't know why I let him sit there and continue with this stupid exploration. I hate to admit it, but I think I was as curious as he was. He continued to scroll down the site. There were videos. One was named Burning Child, and of course he clicked on it. And what I saw next will haunt me for the rest of my life. I can barely explain what I saw, but I know exactly how I felt seeing it. I felt heartbroken. There was a child who was struggling and screaming against two men who were holding him down. They were pouring some sort of liquid on the child, and then moments later, they lit him on fire. He was screaming in pain. I could see his skin melting from his body. I was literally crying at that point. It even took me a few moments to realize that I was. Those screams were beyond anything I've ever heard. They were so different from what you see in movies. They were so primal and real. As they echoed from my computer, they seemed to relay every sense of pain the small child felt. I could feel vomit rising in my throat. What kind of sickos could do this? Then all of a sudden, a chat box appeared on the screen. A user by the name of Fire435 typed something into the chat box. "Hello there. Are you enjoying this?" It read. We had no idea what to answer. And honestly, I thought it was just one of those fake chat boxes, an ad of sorts. The ones with the bots that chat with you to make you click over to their website. It continued. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Before we could even think of replying, another window popped up above it. This was a live stream video apparently, because it was showing us from my webcam. I didn't even know it was on. The moment we saw ourselves on the video, we panicked and tried to shut down the computer, but the computer was not reacting fast enough. "Why are you trying to leave? Don't you want to be the next spot on our show?" Another message appeared in the chat, followed immediately by my street address, my name, my age, all of my personal data. This was no prank. This was real, and they knew who I was. As I stared at the monitor in horror, it suddenly clicked off, and everything went.
If you mash strawberries and the mayor.
Jack had unplugged the computer, and it had finally shut down, but we didn't have a moment to relax, because Jack's cell phone began to beep. It was a text from a number Jack did not recognize, and it read, "I'm going to find you." Jack blocked that number immediately. We had a short discussion on what the heck just happened, and we were scared for our lives. What if this psycho or group of psychos actually found us? And in this situation, we couldn't go to the police or our parents. As far as we knew, it wasn't legal what we just looked at. Months went by without too much happening. I think we both were trying to forget about this experience. But one day, I got an unexpected package. There was no name written on it, but I was very curious, and I went on to see what was inside it. I wish I had never opened that box. The box was full of pictures, those old Polaroid printouts, and each picture depicted a different body part. A picture of a human heart, a picture of just a torso, no limbs, a picture of a child's face with their eyes rolled back in their head. When I saw that face, I dropped the box and I ran up to my room. My parents must have found the box and called the police. When they got here, they asked me many questions, but I didn't tell them anything about going on the dark web. I was still too afraid that I had done something highly illegal. I just couldn't risk it, but I honestly wasn't sure if it was worth lying about. Luckily for me, everything seemed to go back to normal after these experiences, at least for now. I haven't gotten any new messages or packages, and the police haven't contacted us with any further information. But all of this has really shown me something. It's shown me how this world can be evil and cruel. I didn't know that there were people out there like that. For anyone who hasn't been to the deep web, I suggest you quit thinking about it, because you will most definitely be risking your life. Number 2. I bought my dad on eBay. Submitted by Christopher Maxim. I'm only 14 years old, but I'm very tech savvy. I enjoy hacking computers and even building them from time to time. One of my more recent and morbid hobbies has been exploring the deep web. Before you get the wrong idea, I don't go there for the dark stuff. Well, I do, but not the kind of stuff you're thinking about. I explore the deep web for the joy of finding new websites, brand new, off-kilter, bizarre ones. I find them and catalog them for my own personal entertainment.
It feels like I'm actively discovering new parts of an ever-growing planet, or at the least, the dark side of one. Despite it being the deep web, most of the websites I've come across are mundane and uninspired. For example, a 9/11 conspiracy site, a dating site for white supremacists, and sites dedicated to assassinating the president. Boring. But then there's the most interesting ones, like a marketplace for selling various serial killers' belongings, a site for worshipping a strange cult called the Clan of the Red Wolf, and a Hitler fanfiction site, and I'm talking violent, hypersexual fanfiction, to name a few. These are the kinds of sites that either pique my interest or make me laugh, giving them a spot in my catalog of oddities. One day, while on my usual hunt for the unusual, I came across a site called Parent Snatcher. The layout was overly simple and looked more like someone's Tumblr page rather than a deep web website. But I wanted to see what it had to offer. In reading its contents, I found little to placate my hunger for the strange and obscene. It was just a list of pronouns and numbers, coupled with links to eBay listings on the surface web selling furniture. Her, 37, eBay listing says a love seat for $14,356. Him, 28, the eBay listing saying sofa for $11,467. Another one said her, 42. The eBay listing said drapes, $12,569. There was a him, 40. The eBay listing said ceiling fan for $29.97. And a her, 32, with the eBay link stating dining room set for $29.97 as well. This setup confused me. Doing a little more digging, I found various number sequences embedded into the background of the website. Being a fan of encryption myself, I wondered if it might be a code of some sort. I took down the series of numbers and ran it through one of my mini code-breaking programs that I had on my computer. After an hour or so, it popped out a message. Welcome to Parent Snatcher. Need a new mom or dad? Not satisfied with the one you have? Well, you've come to the right place. Follow a her listing for a mother unit and a him listing for a father unit. Ages are included in the description. Once payment is received by the eBay user, we will send you your new parent. All of our human products come with a lifetime guarantee. We monitor the bonding process 24/7 for quality control. They are equipped with a tracking chip and video surveillance, making it impossible for them to escape. We here at Parent Snatcher desire your full satisfaction above all else. Enjoy. Now that was obviously weird. I've certainly never seen anything like that on the deep web. This was definitely getting a special place in my catalog, whether it was fake or not. After saving the site into my collection, I wondered, what if it actually worked? This is going to sound stupid, but I always wanted a dad. It's been me and my mom for as long as I can remember. She says he left when I was young, but I don't recall him ever being there. As such, I would often fantasize about him returning home, seeing me all grown up, and wanting to be a part of my life again. Like I said, it's stupid. Still, I really wanted to know if the site worked. I tried 1,000 different search engines and asked around on forums on both the deep web and the surface web. Not a single mention of Parent Snatcher was anywhere. I finally ripped my eyes from my computer monitor, and I looked over at my clock. It was nearly 3 in the freaking morning. I'd been searching for information on this one site for several hours, and for one reason or another, I just couldn't let it go. Maybe it was my need for a father figure, or perhaps it was the sleep deprivation. Either way, I found myself walking upstairs to my mom's bedroom. Once there, I snuck past her, asleep on the bed, and I reached into her purse located on one of her nightstands. I grabbed her wallet and quietly walked back downstairs to my room. I picked out one of her credit cards, followed the cheapest dad listing on Parent Snatcher to the surface web, and clicked on the Buy It Now option for a ceiling fan. I typed in all of the credit card information required, and then I paused for a moment. I was about to not only break my mom's trust, spend a boatload of her money, but I was also doing something potentially dangerous. What if the man I purchased wasn't nice? What would my mom say or do when he got there? What if there would be no man at all? What if the site was just a carefully orchestrated scam designed into swindling unsuspecting children out of their parents' money? I asked myself these questions, but they barely made a dent in my curiosity. I hit enter and finalized the purchase. After sneaking the card back into my mom's purse, and without being noticed, I waited. Days passed. Those days became weeks. I had to put up with my mom arguing on the phone with her credit card company, as well as eBay, over the mysterious $3,000 purchase I made with her card. She never once suspected me of doing the deed, even venting with me about it from time to time. That made me feel guilty. My guilt, however, was no match for my excitement. I could not wait to see if Parent Snatcher was legitimate. The weeks that passed eventually turned into a month, and that's when I started becoming wary of the site's claims. I began to accept the fact that I was just a dumb kid, fooled by a master con artist. I was left feeling hopeless, and like an idiot, I had been fantasizing about a scenario in which the site not only worked, but sent me a nice man to be my dad. He would meet me, meet my mom, and they would both fall in love. We would be a family again. I knew the chances were slim, but I still hoped. I was a fool. One night while on my computer, searching for more deep web gems, I heard a loud bang at the front door. A burglar, perhaps. I jumped up from my computer and grabbed the baseball bat I kept under my bed. I was ready to fight off any would-be intruder. After getting into a fighting stance, I heard someone shuffling around outside my bedroom. My adrenaline was through the roof. I stood my ground and wound up the bat, ready to swing. My bedroom door suddenly swung open. It was a man wearing all black, including a black ski mask. He stood there, looked me up and down, apparently sizing me up, before finally speaking. "Are you the one who placed an order with Parent Snatcher?" Struck with confusion, I nodded. The man then suddenly bolted in my direction and grabbed me. He put his hand over my mouth and pulled me out of my room. I struggled, but he was too strong. Just before he could get me out of my house, I attempted to bite his hand through the leather glove he was wearing. My teeth as hard as I could and managed to get Just before he could get me out of my house, I attempted to bite his hand through the leather glove he was wearing. I clenched my teeth as hard as I could and managed to get a reaction. The man groaned in pain. That's when I was able to wiggle my way free and run towards the stairs, all the while screaming at the top of my lungs for my mom to wake up. But the man caught up quick and grabbed me again. But my cries for help were effective. My mom showed up at the top of the stairs, just in time to see what was going on. My mom screamed and leapt down the flight of stairs, faster than I've seen any person move in my life. She began bashing the guy's head in with her fist, making it nearly impossible for him to hold on to me. He threw some punches back, but I wasn't going to let him get away with laying his dirty hands on my mother. I stretched my leg back as far as it would go, and I kicked him as hard as I could in his groin, and I watched as he fell to the floor. He still tried to fight back, but my mom and I had the upper hand. Eventually, he ran for the door and fled our home. It's been a few weeks since that man broke into our house. I can only guess that he really did work for Parent Snatcher, but the site wasn't what I hoped it was. It seemed that its goal was not only to make money, but also to kidnap children. Once they have a billing address, they probably canvass the area for a few weeks to make sure the house in question actually harbors a child or teenager. I didn't figure it all out on my own. If I was able to think that far ahead, I wouldn't have wound up in this mess to begin with. I ended up telling my mom the truth, as well as the police. they figured out the rest. Unfortunately, the site was taken down, and the perpetrators were never apprehended. The cops are still on the lookout. They offered my mom and I a police detail and new security system. So in spite of the ordeal, we still sleep well. What would Parent Snatcher have done if they had actually captured me? The police wouldn't offer me insight on this, but I'm sure they told my mom. I already have a good guess anyway. More than likely, I would have been integrated into some kind of child trafficking ring, perhaps sold off to the highest bidder on another deep web website. From there, I'm sure you can gather what would have happened. Lucky for me, I wasn't captured. So all in all, I've learned a lot from nearly being kidnapped. And one thing is certain. I will never visit the deep web again for as long as I live. Number 3. There's no place for innocence on the deep web. Submitted by Kevin L. I'm a 20-year-old guy living in Quebec, Canada. The story I'm about to share with you might be a bit too detailed or too offensive for your liking. This story happened on a summer night of 2016. I was relaxing at home when I stumbled upon Reddit posts about the dark web. Soon I was very intrigued, and I had to know more. I looked it up online. Doing some research, I found how to get on the deep web. After an hour or two of getting everything together and being sure that I was set up okay, I was finally ready for the unknown. Or so I thought. I started by your typical deep web wiki and started clicking every link one by one. I was nervous and cautious about clicking anything, as it could always lead to terrible things, images and pictures that are not only disturbing, but very, very illegal. Honestly, I just wanted to find some weird and creepy stuff, not scar myself for life. After a few hours of digging around, I finally hit something very interesting. A working and non-shady adult site with lots of links and a really detailed introduction to the website. The intro was simple, telling you that there are a lot of links to some hidden adult websites with content that would not be allowed on the internet, since not everyone shared the same fetishes. It also stated there were other links that contained some stuff people would call messed up. I wish I had never been curious enough to click those. The first few links were adult websites for BDSM and other brutal stuff that included violence and even rape. The actors knew that it would be something intense, but it's like these extreme horror houses. You might be a fan of horror, but there's always a limit to what you like. It was messed up to see, but it wasn't that bad. I then tried the links for the messed up content. If the creator of the website thinks the BDSM stuff wasn't messed up, I was kind of scared to see his definition of disturbing. As I entered the site, everything looked alright, I guess. The creator introduced himself as a sex doll maker. He was showing pictures of his work, and honestly, it was amazing. The dolls looked almost human. They were not creepy or anything like that, as you would see with normal dolls. They had so many details necessary to make them look realistic, but nothing too much to make it look creepily real. There was a bit more text down the page, and then he showed 2 pictures that have been forever burned into my mind. He showed pictures of 2 dolls that were apparently inspired by his nieces. They were labeled as ultra-realistic sex dolls, based on his 8 and 12-year-old nieces. Side by side were the dolls and 2 skull pictures of the girls in question. There was no mistake. Those dolls were exact replicas. I was disgusted out of my mind when I saw those pictures. They looked so real. The only thing that convinced me that these dolls weren't actually the little girls in those pictures were the metal skeletons he showed in a step-by-step process in creating the dolls. For my own sake, as soon as I was sure, or at least partially sure, that those dolls were just dolls, I exited Tor, and I erased every trace that had been on the deep web from my PC. I was shocked for the longest time. I couldn't process the information of what I'd just seen. Some sick pervert out there made a perfect replica of his underage nieces to have fun with and sell them to other sick individuals that were into this kind of stuff. I was just looking for weird or creepy things, and I think I got what I was looking for. Since then, I've been on tour a few times, and fortunately, I can only find websites dedicated to cooking with weed, and other websites about illuminated people that say alien Jesus came and visited them. To every one of you out there, the deep web is not a place for you. It's a place that is filled with creepy and disturbing people that do weird and disturbing stuff. Seriously, if you want to preserve your innocence, do not go on the deep web, or else you might find something you regret ever laying an eye on. Number 4. The Knocking Man. Submitted by Josh. I'm a 15-year-old guy. I'm about 6 feet. I'm built.
They echoed loudly off the walls as I thrashed around, internally begging for the pain to stop. I had felt torment before, but nothing like this. Not even close. We built you to be resistant to a lot, but we needed to give you some sort of Achilles heel. You know, for contingency purposes. There was no emotion left in her voice as she spoke. Her friendly attitude that she had feigned earlier had completely disappeared. Now all I could see was a look of malice and hatred. She truly looked like she was barely containing her unhinged madness. My limbs were twitching after the excruciating shock had concluded. Smoke rose from the surface of my skin as I laid there defenseless, the chains now feeling even tighter around my wrists. It's sad to see such a waste of man-hours and resources. She leaned down behind the glass condescendingly. I tried to tell you, trying to convince you what it is you have here, but seeing that you're stubborn, it looks like we'll have to open up that head of yours and make a few adjustments. Maybe I'll even leave you awake during the procedure to teach you a lesson. Dr. West, what are you doing? Said a more masculine voice, accompanied by the sound of rapid footsteps. It stung like crazy, but I turned my head to see whoever had stormed in. Being grateful, they had distracted West long enough for my healing abilities to kick in and tell me recover. But I healed much slower than normal. West was right. The electricity was my weakness. The male human also wore a lab coat, seemingly a doctor as well. He raced over to West and attempted to grab the device from her. He's turned, John. He's going to places he shouldn't be going and abandoned a mission site, she shouted, holding out an arm for John to keep his distance. Well, that doesn't mean you shock him, you moron. We need him strong, able to fight. This is only going to make things worse. He needs to be punished. West snapped back. He needs to learn he belongs to us and he needs to obey. You know what would happen once he begins to think he's the one in charge. John took a deep breath. I'm not going to ask again, Doctor. Give me the remote now. West once again refused, attempting to run away but being grabbed by John as he tried to snag the remote from her. No, stop, Dr. West pleaded. He's too dangerous. Give me the damn remote, West. John yelled as his thumb slipped onto the bottom button and all the chaos of their struggle. Suddenly, the chains wrapped around my arms unlined and disconnected themselves. The reinforced glass walls of the room lowered down into the floor. I was now free to move around. As fast as possible, I threw the chains off and stood up, still feeling slightly weak from my intense electric shock, but retaining enough strength to fight should I have to resort to doing so. West and John both stopped and dropped the remote inattentively, both turning their heads to look up at me as I towered over them. I could even see John's legs shaking as he sized me up. I could quite literally smell the fear coming off of them. Run, West shouted, turning around and sprinting for the door that led into a brightly lit hallway, clearly having no remorse for leaving John behind with me. Once John's adrenaline kicked in, he too had turned to run, but not before I quickly dashed and leaped across the floor, grabbing him by the shoulder and lifting him up to eye level. He was terrified, shaking, kicking, and screaming, begging for me to let him go. I could tell he was surely close to urinating. I'm sorry, I really am. I cut him off, lowering him back down to the floor before saying, "You may go, but West is mine," I told him, and giving him a look that told him my statement was non-negotiable. It seemed more than fine with that proposal. He quickly nodded and ran out of the room, both horrified and grateful that I had chosen to spare his life. The alarm system in the building began to ring. A female voice came over the intercom, endlessly repeating the phrase, "Security breach at level 5. All possible agents engage." Heavy footsteps began to ring out through the hall next to the chamber room that I was in. It was a multitude of agents coming my way, all more than likely armed with that same gas they had used to subdue me earlier. I didn't want to risk finding them and getting caught once again. God knows what Dr. West would do to me the second time around, and it would all just be to prove a point. Not a damn thing to do with science. I looked all around the room for a sign of escape, desperate to get out of this nightmare of a room. I was greatly relieved when I looked directly above me and spotted a large air duct cover. I was very tall, but skinny enough to fit through it was wise. I didn't have any other options. It was either this or suffer endless torture at the hands of West. The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear the voices of the agents as they ran down in formation towards the room. I had to act quickly. I got on all fours, lashed myself onto the nearest wall, and crawled up under the ceiling from there. I scurried across and stopped at the duct, reaching over with one hand to grab and tear off the cover, making sure to bring it with me, not wanting the agents to see it. At least not at first. It would hopefully buy me a few more minutes before they had realized where I had gone. I quickly crawled up inside the vent, hearing the agents enter the room, and cursed violently as they tried to spot me to no avail. I scurried deeper into the tight tunnels, making sure not to scrape my claws against the metal, or make any sounds that could be heard over the alarms. I had remembered the layouts of the building from all the previous years that I had spent here. The chamber room was new to me though. I had never been in there before. Up until now, I was obedient, and I had followed their orders. But I was sure as hell done doing that. I crawled over to the security room. I had remembered seeing agents always going in there before we had went off to go hunt unencrypted. I picked up Dr. West's scent coming from it. Looking through the duct cover from an aerial view, I spotted her sitting in a chair with a glass of water in her hand, while two guards stood in front of the door to the room, keeping their assault rifles trained on it. "Don't worry, Doc. If he comes in here, we'll blow him away." I sniffed around a little bit more, seeing if I could pick up the scent of anyone else in the room, just in case. But all I had gotten was West and the two guards. I prepared myself to attack. I needed to be fast and take the guards out before they could alert any others to my position. Using stealth and precision, I slowly reached my claws outwards and locked them around the air duct cover, gripping it firmly before ever so slowly pulling it off and up into the vent tunnels. "You two idiots better make sure he doesn't get through that door, because if he does, I'll run while he tears your organs out." Dr. West shouted angrily at the two guards. They didn't respond as I moved out of the vent and began to cautiously creep along the ceiling in their direction, keeping my movements slow and deliberate. So far, they and West hadn't taken notice of my presence. I made it above the guards and quickly dropped down, swatting the first guard away with a casual backhand. He was sent flying across the room, slamming into a table and getting knocked unconscious. Stacks of paper scattered as he and the table tipped backward onto the floor. The other guard quickly reached for his radio and tried to call for backup. I cut him off by grabbing him and slamming him headfirst into the wall. He too was now out cold. After they had both been taken care of, I turned my attention to Dr. West. She had already backed up to the far side of the room. The fear was palpable in her expression. "Stand down now," she commanded desperately. "That's an order, 16A. I stood up, raising my claws and showing my teeth as I walked toward her. "I will not say it again. My name is Braun," I growled. "Get away from me, now," she cried. I ignored her demand, still keeping my purposefully sluggish pace as I closed in on her, wanting her to feel small, insignificant, and weak. "I should have killed you. I should have let you starve or waste away. Clearly, I've shown far too much mercy." "No," I stopped her. "It is I who has shown too much mercy." "Well, kill me then, you freak." She began to laugh maniacally. "Do it. That's what I designed you to do, to kill. So why aren't you doing it? You spared John and the guards. You can't even complete the simple task that you were created to do." The looming threats of her potential death had sent her into a senile state. She was no longer able to mask her deep-rooted insanity. "You designed me to kill monsters," I corrected her, right before drawing my claws back and slashing her throat. She clutched her neck as blood spewed out from her fatal wound. Sounds of gurgling and choking filled the room as she fell to her